Nsima, are you a fan of cookies?
I love cookies. I love them.
I love them too, man. And it's hard to, eat cookies while you're trying to have a clean diet.
One of the things that I like about the Quest cookies is that, number one, they taste good. But the second thing is, when you eat something, like if you have an actual cookie, you shouldn't feel guilty, but you do, because you know what you just had and you know that there's hella sugar and all that crap. But when you have a Quest cookie, okay, there's not that many carbs, it has a decent amount of fiber, and it's like not bad for you. So you can have something that tastes really good, enjoy yourself, get that little dopamine kick if you want to, but you also know that it was something that was good for you. So those Quest cookies are bomb.
Yeah, it has some protein in it. And then also it's like one serving, like it's one fairly good sized cookie. And you know that you're most likely not going to eat like 5, 6 or 10 or 20 of them like I would with a regular batch of cookies. So check out the Quest cookies. Andrew, what do you got?
I just want to tell everybody to check out the double chocolate chip cookie. That one's my favorite. Definitely, maybe even tied or a really close second is the oatmeal raisin. Something about the extra kick in the raisin, it sets it off perfect. It's really good. You guys really need to experience these. Head over to questnutrition.com, enter promo code MarksQuest at checkout. That'll get you 20% off everything at questnutrition.com.
So Nsima, I know you come from a background of kind of counting calories and weighing stuff and things like that. But more recently, you've been doing a lot of intermittent fasting. And you cut out a lot of carbohydrates, right?
Yeah, I've been going super, super, super low carb.
How are you doing that with jiu-jitsu and power? And you're still strong. I mean, I think it was just 2 months ago or so you pulled like a 725 deadlift.
Yeah, no, I think it took a little bit of getting used to, and it took a little bit of experimenting with things I could use in my fast to just make it go a little easier, so I wasn't, feeling like crap. I think some of the Perfect Keto products are pretty awesome for that too, like the MCT oils in the morning. But yeah, it took some time. It took some getting used to not having anything in my stomach and not eating food during the day.
My brother really struggles with fasting. He's like, I can't fast. And I was like, well, what if you have, some MCT oil in your coffee? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I can fast then. So he can make it till like 1 or 2 o'clock each day. A lot of people really struggle with that. They get too hungry. And the Perfect Keto products, I think, are a perfect addition to anybody that's trying to mess around with fasting or trying to make some good lifestyle changes to their diet. You can try the bars. You can try the MCT oil. They also have collagen. I mean, they sell all kinds of stuff, and all the products are really super high quality. People should be checking it out. Check out Perfect Keto. What do we got, Andrew? Tell them where to find it.
Cool. So our listeners can enter and stay in ketosis today by going to perfectketo.com/powerproject and use code POWERPROJECT and get 15% off all Perfect Keto products.
So we're just watching a video on the sheer force value of meat. Yeah. Because the Piedmontese meat is so tender. We're trying to figure out, how are they able to, make the meat like this? And the video we just watched basically just explains that, by kind of slicing through the meat, they end up with what they call a sheer force value. And apparently, the certified Piedmontese, they do a great job of keeping that meat super tender, so very easy to cut through, which makes it easier to chew.
Yeah. I've had a lot of different types of steaks, a lot of steaks I paid good money for that just were not tender at all.
That's the most disappointing thing ever, right?
Yes, because you're paying good money for steak. You want it to taste good. You want it to be tender. So it's impressive that they're doing all this with their meat.
Yeah, it's great they're putting the information out there too. And again, they have information on how to cook, which I think is great. Having a cook guide is really important. And on top of it, we don't want the meat to be like hard and dry. There's really nothing worse than having a steak that's like that. And so they have tender meat that has tons of protein in it, and it's very lean, much leaner than a lot of the other meats that are out there. And I think they're just doing it with those jacked Nebraska cows. Andrew, where can they find out more information about Piedmontese beef?
Certified Piedmontese has a crazy deal exclusively for our listeners. Head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. Enter promo code POWERPROJECT. That'll get you 25% off your order, along with free 2-day shipping on all orders of $100 or more.
Dude, that's called flexing on somebody. And Andrew, we're all boys here. There's no need to do that. I mean, Nsima does it because he's an asshole. And Andrew, you and I have talked privately about what an asshole Nsima is at length.
I know this though.
At length.
Always flexing on people.
I try to.
Always.
I gotta put them in their place.
But dude, I think that, God sets us up to live maybe about 100 years old.
Okay.
And then I think it's our job from there to try to take that and do the best we can with it. And I think From just most of my knowledge, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I kind of have a theory that the foods that we eat can mainly only do us harm, and there's some foods that can just be like in the middle. And I think fruit, vegetables, and meat kind of just are like in the middle. They don't give us a real positive. They don't give us a real negative. Now, towards certain results, maybe they give us a positive, but towards longevity, I don't think they really do. And again, like I ain't no scientist and I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't know, but it's just kind of a little bit more of a theory. And I think that pizza and Doritos and ice cream and some of these magnificent things, if we stack those things up too much and we overeat consistently, I think we'll be lucky to live to be into our 70s. The average life expectancy, we just looked it up beforehand, is about 79. So I think, and that's pretty crazy because what percentage of the population even eats relatively healthy?
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty long life. People kind of always say life is short, and I'm sure when you look back at your life, when you're older, you probably will feel that life is short, but I think that life, it feels pretty long. Like it feels like we have a good amount of time on this earth. I know relative to how long Earth has been here, it's very short, but it feels like a pretty good amount of time. And I just wonder, can we really, truly prolong it with exercise and nutrition if we get on these certain diets? What do you think?
All right, there's a lot here. But I think that we can, the big concept is not overdoing. I think you kind of mentioned that too, foods that you can overeat on or foods that it's very easy to overeat on, like, pizza, ice cream, really palpable foods. It's very, very easy to just go too ham on those. Everywhere other than the US, actually not everywhere, because certain other countries, people overconsume a little bit too. But like you do go to other countries, especially European countries and Asian countries, and when you see meals in restaurants, they're typically not massive meals. And I do wonder, like, what is the average lifespan of someone in some of those countries? Is it higher than the US or lower? But the people on average tend not to overconsume food. Now, I do think that there are certain things that people can utilize to extend their lifespan. There's been, as far as longevity is concerned, Rhonda Patrick talks about this a lot in terms of the amount of research that's gone into sauna use, especially in European countries and the people that live there, and how it's like there's an uptick in all, like, just their lifespan because of it. So I think there are habits that can help with that, like doing that. And then exercise, I think obviously there's also, like, within exercise, there's also not overdoing it, because if you're trying to be an elite level athlete, and I think maybe this really depends on the sport too, because let's say an elite level athlete in a sport that's, like basketball or something, I don't think that's as potentially harmful to the body as potentially being an elite level athlete in a sport like powerlifting or a resistance sport, just because of the load that an individual has to lift, like even Olympic lifting, on a consistent basis, right? So they'll get really fit, but you'll see, like, if an athlete does that for a really long time, there's hip replacements sometimes, there's just different things that, that wear down the joints. But I think that if you can lift within reason, I think, what's his name from OPEX? I keep forgetting his name. Yeah, he was talking like that.
Yeah, he was mentioning a lot of stuff. I'm losing his name for a second. Ferguson or something like that. God. Well,
I'll find it.
He'll find it.
It'll pop up. It'll come to us.
Yeah, in that episode, he made a really good point that, for longevity's sake, you do want to exercise, and it will help you live longer because you'll have stronger muscles, stronger joints, but it's probably not, like, training like an elite athlete is probably not going to lead to that. Like, yeah, you'll get very strong, but then you also run a higher risk of long-term injury.
Yeah, a real simple example of that is, maybe you go out and maybe you try some sprints. Well, maybe you try some sprints at 70%, 80%. Well, then now maybe your buddy lines up next to you, and now you try to sprint against him, and you hurt your hamstring, right? Like, as soon
Tom.
Yeah. Well, as soon as there's competition involved, or as soon as you're trying to, like, impress or, like, really push, and same thing could happen on, like, a bench press. You're with your buddies, and each guy does 275, and now it's your turn. You don't have no business trying 275, but of course, because everybody else did it, there you are. Now you went from having a healthy practice to compromising your health because now you have an injury. And so I think, maybe the same thing is happening with a lot of people's training, where they're maybe training for 2 hours, or they're, utilizing sprints, or they're just being too competitive. Maybe they compete in powerlifting, and maybe they compete 3 or 4 times a year, and they have a lot of stress and anxiety over really trying to push that deadlift up, that total up. And that can be pretty brutal. As far as like basketball goes, that whole thing is very interesting too, because I wonder if body size, I wonder how body size plays into all this. Cause I mean, now obviously like the person's like shrunken down and stuff cause they're like old, but I don't know about you guys, but anytime I've watched TV and they had like the Smuckers, 110th birthday for so-and-so or whatever that they share on the news sometimes, it's always like a shriveled down person, And then women live longer than men, and I wonder if that's because in general women are normally smaller than men. So what I would wonder is like, I wonder what the stats look like on people that are like 6'5" and above.
Yeah.
Even like LeBron James, you think that's got to be like the healthiest human on the planet, because he's 6'8" and he's 250 and he doesn't really have any body fat. He can do all kinds of crazy stuff that no one's been able to do before. And so you might think, maybe that's like the healthiest guy in the world, but maybe just because of how big he is. I mean, we only get one heart. Yeah. So I wonder, maybe his heart adapted. I don't know.
In terms of like willful exercise, or like exercise for exercise sake, I think that's just been something that we've been doing since, I don't know, maybe there's been sport for a long time, but conscious exercise of the mass population, where we've had like gyms and weights to move around. That's just been something that we've been doing for the last 60, 70 years.
Yeah, it's not, it hasn't been around for that long. I mean, I know like that whole like Venice Beach, like muscle beach movement is really, from my understanding, from like the 50s and 60s, I think. And I think there was some movement of weights in other countries and stuff like that, and I think there was some stuff going on here as well, but it's not dating back that far, to your point. It might be maybe circus lifts, I know, were like a thing for a while, and then there's like Herman Gorner, and he's from a long ass time ago. I would say like the earliest that we're seeing a lot of weight starting to be moved is maybe like 1920, 1930. That would be like the earliest, and then the progression of it being more attractive to the average person, and the learning of like building muscle probably didn't happen until like the 60s or the 70s, which ain't that long ago.
Yeah. So I think there's 3 things to think about.
And then like treadmills and ellipticals and like all that stuff. I mean, those are all, I think those are pretty new in terms of like landing in areas that are easy for you to go and utilize. I'm sure treadmill's probably been around for a long time, but usage of treadmill for weight loss amongst the masses is, let's just say, it's 50 years old.
So what I'm getting at here is like, I've seen a bunch of articles and certain documentaries. You see like certain people that are 60 and 70 and they look like they're 50, look like they're 40. They're in amazing shape, and they're typically people that are exercising. That's one thing. Number 2, though, I think that just because we have gyms and just because we have access to a lot of these things, I think that you're right in terms of us as a population being in a net negative, because even though we have access to all these things that, if utilized in a smart way, can, I believe, help us live much longer, most people aren't living lifestyles that will allow them to do that, even if they do go to the gym. The reason is most people are sitting down most of their day in an office space.
Andrew.
They're sitting down most of the day in an office space. They're not getting outside. They're not getting sunlight. And I mean, even we had a chat with Ron Pena about like the effect on the eyes of Chinese children because they weren't getting enough sunlight, right? That's the population. Okay, they're living most of their life in a chair in an office, right? They have access to a gym, and let's say they do work out once a day. They're still not even on their feet for a majority on that time. They're sitting. So you think about that over a long period of time, working out once a day. Let's say most people don't work out 7 days a week, but let's say they get that 1 hour of gym time 7 days a week. But the rest of the time, they're not even on their feet. They're not outside. That's still going to be a net negative, because when they get to, I think, 50, 60, 70, they're still going to have I think probably worse problems than individuals in the 30s and 40s who were forced to potentially have to be outside, do manual labor, and walk around a lot more. I think those people would end up living longer than most of the people in this population just because of the small habits that they were forced to have. If we were able to do these things like pay attention to walking around a lot, get out multiple 10-minute walks, get outside, not sit most of the time, and use resistance training in the gym, that resistance training will help you like not shrivel over, I think, as you get older, and all these other things that happen.
I like what you're saying right there, because that falls in line with our boy Simland when he talked about fasting. And he talked about, it's cool to do a 24-hour fast or 48 or 72, and some people do longer. But what's even probably better for you is to have consistency. Like maybe you fast 12 hours every day, but maybe you do it for 4 years. It's like, that's a lot of fasting. That's a lot of time. That's half the day spent every day not eating, and then half the day with maybe an eating window, depending on your schedule or how you're doing it. But it kind of, falls in line with what you just said about, maybe the activity of somebody years ago. And also, what about the brain activity of just saying I need to go get well water, for my family. Yeah. It's, fucking 13 degrees outside. I need to have the practice of getting up, getting all these clothes on just to get out the door. And then I have to walk a few hundred yards. And then once I get the buckets of water, however it worked, I don't even know how some of this stuff worked. And you walk with these buckets for a while, and then now you have, just even some water. You don't have a lot of it. You just have some. And maybe you got to make, multiple trips. Maybe your, 6-year-old son, maybe got to nudge him and say, hey, boy, you're coming with me, type thing. And maybe from the time you're so young, you're doing all these things. And not only are you doing these things and their activities, but you're also forcing your brain to do stuff that you don't really want to do when you don't normally want to do it. And I think all of us can agree that that's a pretty healthy thing. That I can't really think, forcing yourself to do stuff that's really, really hard and going all David Goggins on it, that's a different category. And that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about, picking up your bedroom. We're talking about, cleaning the house, cleaning out your garage. And then also, kind of from years and years ago, doing things on a farm or doing manual labor. My grandpa was really old school, and he used to make his kids, he had 9 kids. He used to make his children go out and dig a ditch. And then they would say they'd be like, why? And he's like, because I said so. Instead of go out and dig a ditch, they don't know how to dig a ditch. They never have done it before. They just start digging. And of course their hands get all jacked up, and then they go and they look for gloves. And of course my grandpa had gloves around because he was a mechanic and he did a lot of manual labor stuff, but he didn't tell them any of that, Then they found the gloves because they got blisters on their hands. And they're like, this is more effective than not having gloves. But they're sitting there and they're just figuring everything out. And then once they dug the ditch, they would be like, all right, what do you want us to do now? He's like, just fill it back in. So they would really just do stuff. And it's we don't have, obviously, that was for no reason. That wasn't that long ago. But sometimes you're doing stuff like that for a reason. Maybe you're, got a trench because you need irrigation or something from, many years ago. Now it's just a machine does it. You hop on some sort of machine and it just plows right through it and it gets the job done for you. So you're absolutely right. We used to just have to do a lot more. I wonder, that's a really interesting thing. I wonder how many calories, our ancestors burned, And is burning calories, is the simple act of just burning calories, is that healthy? It probably is. You're probably supposed to burn a certain amount of calories per hour that you're awake every day. And that requirement certainly isn't being met. I think you probably know a little bit more about this than I do, but there's some stats and information, if you swim for an hour, how many calories you burn. And when you look at it, you're like, that ain't that much.
Yeah.
And so again, back to your point is swimming as an activity, running as an activity, lifting weights as an activity. These are all great things, but we're probably not going to really burn that many calories. And normally what we've seen, and from what I've heard from guys like Stan Efferding, is you're looking at 10 or 15% of your daily caloric need being a requirement for your training. And so if you have just more activity throughout your day because you just do a lot of stuff, that would probably represent that other 90%. And that's where people probably aren't moving that much.
Let's think about this. Like, we're here standing during this podcast, right? Or let's just think of an individual that's standing during the day at a desk.
Start moving around a little more.
Yeah, they'll start while we're podcasting, I'm always like moving around a little bit more because I got to stretch, etc. But if I was sitting, I'd be very just like still, and my fingers would be moving. Andrew, I'm not calling you out here. I'm not calling you out
but
here.
We are.
but it's true, right? So, I mean, even if you're not taking multiple walks or whatever, you're like, it's, I think it's called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That is increased drastically because you have all of this movement that's going on. Even when you're standing and you're fidgeting around, you burn quite a bit of calories and it adds up, almost like going back to the fasting thing that you were talking about, right? If you just don't eat for like 14 hours, multiple days a week, it adds up. Just like if you were standing for most of your day, over time, it adds up. You find that like even if you work out once a day and you're trying to cut, right? That one workout is not going to help you in terms of like losing weight or burning calories. What's more so going to help you either is going to be you having to potentially eat less food, you having to potentially add in more excess calories in terms of cardio, or trying to do things during your day that come naturally, like standing a little bit more, like just going and taking a walk while thinking, etc., doing that multiple times a day. You'd be surprised at how many calories you can burn doing stuff like that. And probably you'd be able to eat more. Actually, you'd be able to actually definitely eat more food because of your general just habits. You have better habits. So I think that, yeah, like it's very difficult for a lot of people to lose weight just because of what's going on with their normal day. They're not burning many calories. And it's kind of interesting because nowadays you really have to think about burning calories. Yeah. Whereas I think in the past with a lot of people, they never had to think about burning calories because they just were with their habits. You know, and it's funny. The other thing you mentioned with things getting easier, Andrew and I were legit just having a conversation about how it was he got groceries from Amazon, right? And it was just so go ahead, man. It was so convenient.
I'm gonna give Amazon all my money because and it's not even just from like a shopping like spree standpoint. But no, it's so over the weekend, you know, grocery stores everywhere, it gets crazy. Like I hate going anywhere during the weekend. But we needed some things for Monday, and it's like, oh, dude, like I'm not going. Like we're not going. It's like let's try the Whole Foods section of Amazon.com. So if you have Prime membership, you get free groceries delivered to you, or free delivery. You pay for the groceries, obviously. Within about 2 hours, we had everything we needed from the store, minus like a handful of things that you can't just get from the website, but. It was so easy. It was so convenient. It was cheap too. It wasn't super expensive. I think you're forced to tip like $5 or more. I honestly couldn't figure out how to do that. But anyways, for like let's just say that even if it is, I don't know, $1 or $2 more per item, whatever it is. Like I don't know. It wasn't even that. Like we got all our bananas for like under $1. It was crazy. Whatever the cost is, I'm down to pay for it because the convenience of not having to deal with getting in the car, dealing with the, even if I do self-checkout, like the fucking button's not working again or whatever it is, it was so nice. And I was just sitting there thinking like, man, like there's no excuses. Like you have your set list of things that you want to meal prep or whatever. You have the total before you check out. Yeah. Cause like, I know there was a time period where it's like I have a bunch of stuff in my cart and it's like I have to check my bank account because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford all this. Yeah. And then with that, it's so easy because you're like, oh, I definitely have that, And it would we're doing that many, many more times.
But like that takes away, and it's good, but then the activity of going to the store, walking around the store, having to go look for things, right? Even that is now systematized, so you don't have to have that. Like I don't want to call it expenditure, but it is an expenditure, right?
I'm not sure who had this. I'm not sure if this is correct information, but maybe you can look it up. But Rocky Marciano, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, one of the only boxers to ever retire undefeated, 49-0. he was very underweight as a boxer. I think he was a heavyweight boxer at like 190 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's in the heavyweight class. You're going against guys that are like 6'4", 6'5", and they're good 230 or 250. Even back then, there were some big guys. But his job when he was young, he used to move ice blocks. He used to move these giant ass ice blocks that are really heavy. You would take these two like metal things and you would dig them into the side, and you would unload these like giant ice blocks from like a chest, and then you would bring it into an apartment or a house or whatever. They didn't have, or a business maybe, or probably more like a store rather, because they didn't have a lot of refrigeration. And so we're talking about the convenience of like having something delivered right to your home, but think about the inconvenience of like not even having really like a refrigerator.
Yeah.
So there was times when people didn't even have like refrigeration or the ability to like freeze stuff or keep stuff cold. And it's like, I mean, even if you were just to think about, don't worry too much about not having a fridge, because like there's not a scenario where we have to worry about that for now in this country. But just think if you had to just walk to your store, like where is your nearest store? Like think about that for a minute. Where's your nearest store that has, pretty good food? Like there's probably a gas station not too far, but like a real store. And imagine if you had to figure that out, or you had to figure that out with your family, and you were like, all right, everyone, we're going to walk to the store, and I need all of you because we need to gather up more food, because I can't carry 17 bags back. Well, probably what would happen is you'd probably have more frequent trips, and you probably wouldn't get as much stuff every time, because if you got like 3 or 4 things of milk or something, it'd be really heavy to carry back, right? And so, I mean, just, some of these things like that we used to have to do that just aren't around anymore. And back to your thing about NEAT, we've had Lane Norton on this podcast many times, and Lane talked about things that drive down NEAT, things that just drive down your kind of ordinary, normal fidgeting, your normal moving around, and even your motivation to get up off your couch and go get the remote. It might be diminished, and it might be diminished because of your cardiovascular activity that you're doing in the gym. Maybe you're overtraining with the weights, or maybe you're in a caloric deficit. So these are all things that you can kind of think about, like, man, why am I having such a lazy bones day? Like, did I not sleep? You can kind of go through the checklist and you can say, man, I did 25 sprints this morning. Maybe you just overdid. Maybe you just really went for it. And you're like, that's probably what's driving me to do those things. But if you can start to learn about this stuff and start to be more mindful, because maybe your training, maybe it's not, you want your diet to support your training, and you want your training to support your diet. So maybe your training isn't supporting your diet. Maybe your training, maybe you are going to the gym. Maybe you are consistent, but maybe you're wiping yourself out so bad at the gym that you don't have a whole lot of energy or motivation to do anything else.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense too. Sometimes I think like, though, when there's two sects of this. When you're an athlete and you're like, let's say, trying to get ready for a competition, or you're a power lifter who's really trying to get strong for competition, sometimes you're going to have sessions like that. Like that is pretty much unavoidable. You're going to have workouts that are going to wipe you out, and it's unavoidable.
Yeah, especially with what you're doing too with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, like when you're in a jiu-jitsu athlete, you're going to have sessions that are going to wipe you out. But when you're someone who's trying to work out and get healthier, there are going to be some sessions that are harder, but they don't necessarily need to mess you up so much that when you're going home, you can't do anything but like lie down, and you can't go take a walk afterwards. You don't even want to take a brisk walk after your workout. What do you think about that? Do you think that's pretty much right?
No, it's 100% accurate. If you're going to get to a point where you're trying to compete and stuff because you love it, and that alone is healthy. Like finding stuff that you love, finding stuff that you're passionate and excited about. I think probably, in my opinion, I can't really think of, I guess like love would be more powerful, but I can't think of too many more things in this world that are more powerful than just looking forward to stuff. Like just having something to look forward to. And for yourself, I think that jiu-jitsu is probably something that, sometimes you're probably like, wow, like I really blew it out. Last couple of days of training have been really hard, and my back is stiff and this and that. But like, you really look forward to those moments that you get to train, and you look forward to those moments when maybe you don't love every moment of training, but those moments when it like clicks and you're like, oh shit, I figured that felt really good. Can't wait to get back here more, and learn more. Those feelings are really good. So I think that the feeling and the just finding stuff that you really look forward to, I think is a really, really compelling component and a reason for like going for it and overdoing it, on occasion. I think, you're always gonna overdo it.
Yeah. No, and like that's partially why like I like the nature of jiu-jitsu as a sport, at least, because don't get me wrong, it can be very dangerous, as we've talked about, people snapping up knees and ankles and stuff. But I also think that if you're doing it and you're trying to be at competition level, if you're careful and you're smart about what you do, you can go through it, you can come out unscathed. Like you really can, even when training at really, really high levels, because again, if you're being smart, you're being careful, you can always tap when you need to tap. In terms of utilizing your joints, like you'll use them a lot, but it's not like you're loading them hard and heavy all the time. So I think it is something that I can go out and come out with, ideally unscathed and healthy, and I can do for I want to do that until my deathbed. I want to lift until my deathbed too.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing it for yourself, I think all that stuff is easier. If you're worried about like, this guy's got me in this leg lock, and I'm just gonna like show my boys that I'm the toughest guy here. I'm not even gonna care that I'm in this leg. That's when you run into trouble.
Yeah.
But if you're doing stuff for yourself, if you're like, I'm in this hold and I should probably tap, and you're like, I just want to see if I got the guts to fight through this because I still think there's enough space. I can hang on a little longer. Then you can I think you can kind of gauge stuff, and maybe you're not trying to be like such a tough guy. But I think the problem a lot of times is that kind of side feature of everything is it's really hard not to do. It's hard not to be like, I want to impress everybody else, and I'm going to show them like what a badass I am with this, and you maybe try a new move and you go to like take someone down or do something and you throw out your back or something stupid because it was something that just, it doesn't fit, your style doesn't fit where you saw Bones Jones do something and now you're trying it. It's like, you got no business messing with that.
Everyone's deadlifting 500 today. I want to deadlift 500 too. You know what I mean? So exactly though, like with lifting also, if you can figure out and make it about yourself and be smart about what you're doing for yourself, know when you need to push and know when you need to back off, you don't have to get injured. Like the lifting injuries that happen during powerlifting don't have to happen. You can progress, you can get stronger and get through it relatively unscathed. But there are moments where you do need to, I think, have a calculated push.
Yeah.
Because you can't always stay super conservative. Yeah. There have to be pushes, but I think they can just be calculated. Like, okay, I've never touched 600 pounds, but because of everything I've been doing in training, I did 585 for 2 the other day, and I maybe had 1 more rep. I've never done 600, but I know it's possible.
Right.
You can push yourself. You can hit that 600. You probably won't get injured.
And also, just be careful that you're not trying to be greedy, and when it comes to lifting, if you do hit a 585 deadlift and your previous best is 565, you might want to think like, that felt really good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay that way. Because a lot of times it's, crank up the music and just go for it. You can make the decision to go for it. You can roll the dice and go for it. But you already got a 20-pound PR. You already proved to yourself that you're well within range. And maybe the smartest thing would be to wait another about 2 or 3 weeks. And then when you try that 600, it would be, you'll probably have exceeded it by then. You're probably stronger than it. And I think that's another thing to kind of consider while you're trying to figure out all this stuff on your journey is like, you should probably be a little bit overly prepared. For example, if I'm going to get up and talk in front of everybody, somebody might say, how the hell do you do that, man? How the hell do you go up? You got no script in front of you and you just go up there and just talk to people for so long. It's like, well, I feel like I'm pretty qualified. The information that's in my head, I could talk for a few days about lifting. I don't know how many days in a row, but it might take up a couple weeks worth. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing stuff and you're going for certain weights, you shouldn't just barely be able to do 600 pounds. You should be able to do like 615. You should kind of that whole thing about you should leave some in the tank. There should always be like an extra rep there. And walking away from stuff and being like, you know what? that wasn't really that hard is an amazing feeling, because that thing, not only was it not that hard for you at the moment, but it was nearly impossible for you a few years ago.
Yep.
You know, your 400-pound deadlift with your legs shaking like crazy was a thing for you. You know, 405, that was a thing. That was a moment. That was like a spectacular day that you'll never forget. And then the same thing happened with 500 pounds. And now the same thing's going to happen with 600 pounds. But it's a good idea to be overly qualified for it. Like, why randomly go for it, and why be greedy about it?
Exactly. Now, I'm curious, because I think when Andy Galpin was here, it was maybe him who said this. He was
You tried to seduce him on our show.
He thought I was trying to seduce him, and I was, but I didn't let him know that on that day.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
if he knows, if he heard this, I don't think he did.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
I know. I'm just trying to derail everything Nsima's talking about.
But anyway, I think it was Andy that was here, and I think he mentioned something about, you know, the overconsumption of food, and like how I think he said, like, you know, being a large athlete doesn't yield itself to longevity. I don't necessarily know that, or I don't necessarily think that I agree wholeheartedly with that. Although I do totally understand what he's saying. I think that if you're a larger athlete, or you're a muscular person, or you've built a lot of muscle, you've been eating a lot of food to do that, I think in the long run, if you're doing a lot of the things that we're talking about here, I think it can yield itself to longevity. And the reason is because, okay, you'll be doing these, like, you may be competing for a long time, because there are guys, like, we're gonna have Odd Hogan here. You know, he competes into his C69, you know, and he's still competing, right? So you can definitely do these competitions into later in life. But I also think that naturally over time, you will be getting smaller. You won't be able to have as much muscle on your frame. But the muscle that you've built, if you're smart about your training, and if you're smart about what you're doing, that will yield itself to also, like, helping your body be strong into your older years. I mean, how often do we see, like, just older individuals start to just shrivel down and shrink down because of partially gravity and lack of muscular strength? They just kind of shrivel away. But if you've built something, it'll give you pretty much, you'll be able to weather that into your older years. And I think that, again, if you're smart about all the variables of your training, even if you are eating a little bit extra, I don't see why it can't yield itself to longevity.
Yeah, well, people with muscle, it's like a study was done, right? Like, people with stronger legs are harder to kill.
And grip strength.
Yeah. Because one of the, like, most common causes of, like, we joke about it, but like, I broke my hip. Yeah. It's because the old people fall and they can't catch themselves, and they don't have enough leg strength to, like, balance themselves. So they fall, bust their hip. Next thing you know, they're bedridden for the rest of their days, right? So yeah, stronger people are harder to kill. So what you're saying is actually been proven. It makes a ton of sense.
And I think we have a better understanding of, like, the variables too, and dealing with these variables into our older years. So I feel like we could live for a really long time.
Yeah. And not only live for a long time, but be healthy. You know, be healthy, be conscious. You know, like, there's more and more evidence that like Alzheimer's is really, and dementia and things like that are pretty closely related to diabetes. There's more information coming out about that all the time. So being on a low carb, modest carb diet, it's not even so much the carbs, but the carbs play into it again, mainly because people end up overeating. So I hate that I have to sometimes, say carbs and have it be this blanket statement on carbohydrates. But, and again, back to what we always share on this podcast, if you're eating potatoes and rice and fruit, those things, they have a certain taste to them, like a baked potato. It's like, good luck trying to overeat on a baked potato. Now, if you start to add a bunch of stuff to it, now you have the ability to probably eat a couple baked potatoes if you throw cheese and everything on them. But if you just if you use some moderation, even with what you put on them, you're not going to overeat them. But anyway, there's some links between dementia and the overconsumption of carbohydrates, which we just see a lot of people doing in their older years. They're going to have blood sugar issues. They're going to become like pre-diabetic, eventually maybe diabetic. And then that can lead to heart disease. There's some people that believe that heart disease and diabetes are like the same thing. They just manifest and show up earlier on different people. So it's like, one person, their heart will, or their like arteries and stuff will plug up sooner than the next person. And the other person might end up having like type 2 diabetes. But a lot of these things can be avoided, or at least avoided for longer periods of time, even if it is kind of in your history, through having good nutritional practice. Things that we don't know are, could you like just consume a ridiculous amount of calories and be on like a ketogenic diet and have it not have a similar impact? I don't know that information, because I would assume that it still wouldn't negatively impact your blood sugar levels. And I think the blood sugar levels are something that is of a great influence over, having heart disease and having diabetes and things like that. Switching gears a little bit, I used to be 330 pounds, and I saw Bryce Lewis recently win IPF nationals, or I guess it would be USAPL nationals, rather. I don't think it was an international competition. And, it got me kind of thinking about, when we think about longevity, like maybe if there's like a chunk of time in our life where we really went for something, maybe it doesn't have that harmful of an impact, or maybe it does. I don't know. Like maybe me getting up to 330 pounds and wanting to squat 1,100 pounds and bench 900 and try to go for some of those things I was going for, maybe it did cost me a little bit. But if somebody's like, hey man, that I got proof it knocked 5 years off your life. I love life. I love, having experiences and having time with everyone. But I would say, that was, I'll be honest, that was worth it. Like that was fun. Like that's kind of what made me who I am in the eyes of fans and stuff like that. It didn't, it's not my identity personally, but it's my identity outwardly to, having built up Slingshot and some of these other things. So it's like, like we talked about, you got to kind of go for it sometimes. Yeah. And if you're going to try to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, then it's like, yeah, you're probably going to have a surgery. You're probably going to, like, a couple things are probably going to be, but could Bryce Lewis be like, you know what, I'm making another run at Worlds and I want to see what I can do there. Maybe do another year or two. After that, boom, back to, because he used to bodybuild. And he used to be a volleyball player. Like he used to be a college volleyball player, which is strange because he's not a super tall guy. You wouldn't pin him for a volleyball player. But, back to kind of my story and my point is that I've been very healthy for a really long time. I've been in good shape for a really long time. When I first met my wife 20 something years ago, I was, 210 or 215 pounds or so, and I was pretty lean. So it's like I've been in good shape for many, many years. The Fat Mark powerlifter was really like a 5-year stint. It wasn't really that long, but I did abuse anabolic steroids. I did use PEDs, and I did anything and everything I could to try to get stronger. So maybe there was a price to pay there.
Maybe, but like you said, I think that when it comes to stuff like that, you're right. Sometimes you just do need to go for it. Some people do, like Bryce Lewis. I don't think he's had any major injuries.
No,
right?
I don't think so.
He's
had like a back injury and stuff, but like real normal stuff.
Yeah, real normal stuff. Like sometimes some things are unavoidable, no matter how much you try to avoid them. But again, you can do things like that and come out like looking at you right now. You're fairly unscathed. Like you're not like
I've never had a surgery.
You've never had a surgery. Even though you fell with almost 1,100 pounds, you've never had a surgery. And yeah, you're doing good. On the note of surgery stuff, though, man, I was reading this book. It's called Range, and it was talking about how like doctors have, or there's a portion of the book, because let's just say like if somebody comes in with a meniscus type problem, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is meniscectomy, right? Meniscectomy, if they see the same thing. But there are a lot of people, like you've probably torn your meniscus at some point.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But there's so many people that I think they had some people actually get a surgery, and then another group, the doctors just like cut into the leg, but didn't do anything. They just had scars and didn't do anything. The individuals that those individuals, they ended up healing up just fine with some physical therapy without having to get cut into. And the ones that got the surgery, yeah, they got healed up, but they still had some symptoms here and there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like, I think that there's a lot of I guess a lot of surgeries also that may be happening. Like even my meniscus surgery that happened, that just maybe they didn't even need to happen. Maybe those things, like your knees are fine now, they're fine and strong, but maybe a lot of things that, you know, we're doing as athletes in terms of that aspect of things just doesn't need to be done. There's a lot more to go down there, but anyway.
Yeah, that was also in the book You Are the Placebo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a pretty good book. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. When it comes to like what I'm doing right now, like trying to shred down a little bit, it's pretty safe to say that like if I was to try to like step up on stage, that's obviously not the healthy way to go, right? That's taking it too far the other way.
I like this topic, and I think we should tackle this one pretty hard for a little bit.
Okay.
Like people say all the time, isn't that unhealthy? You know, like if I don't know, if somebody asks to see a picture of like my bodybuilding show or something, you show them, or if I post it, like some people are like, isn't having all those veins not unhealthy? Like people say that a lot about those kinds of things. So in this case, you know, your question about like, you know, stepping up on a bodybuilding stage isn't unhealthy. There's probably some unhealthy practices that you could get into. For myself, I mean, like aside from the PED usage, which I admit is like a roll of dice, reckless, but you know, I have previous people that I know that have taken similar stuff, so I at least have that to base it off of. I don't think a lot of people would. I think a small percentage of the population would choose to go down the path that I did with some of that stuff, but minusing that out and just thinking about your nutrition, your cardio, and your training, there's probably some unhealthy ways of doing it, but like I wasn't in a crazy caloric deficit. I was training really hard. I didn't really. It was hard because it was hard because of the consistency of it, and it was constant, and there was no. There wasn't like, oh, you know, hey dude, like today you get to have 3 meals. You know, it was like every day I had to have 6 meals, and there was like a cheat meal or 2 in there, which was nice, but there's really no reprieve and there's nowhere to hide. The cardio has to get done. The lifting, it just has to happen. You have to make it all happen. So there are people though that I think we kind of hear these horror stories, especially when it comes to the female competitors, where they have some unhealthy practices of dropping a lot of weight in a really short period of time, and then wham, after the competition's over, and the men are doing it too, gaining 20, 30, 40 pounds.
And, you know, when you look at that, like getting that lean isn't quote unquote healthy, but I think there are a lot of good things that an individual can learn from doing that. First off, like being able to handle yourself under that type of like stress, because number one, like with a lot of people, the libido goes away with like your hormonal levels drop. You do feel very, very stressed all the time when you're
so maybe
lean.
Almost looking at it like a cold plunge. Like jumping in cold water, and it's like, how long are you doing that? You're not really doing it for that long. And then same thing with this. It's like you're gonna. It sounds long because it's like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, however many weeks, but it's like you're really in this position, this kind of tight window, just for I don't know, 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're not gonna hold
about 2
that.
weeks, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna hold that for years, or whatever. It's going to be a few weeks, and then you're gonna come out of it. Hopefully, come out of it in a controlled manner. But you can learn a lot from yourself there. And when we had this conversation, and I'm in no way comparing myself to Arnold, but you mentioned, would Arnold have ever been Arnold without bodybuilding? Like the prep that I did that was super long, that I got super lean with, the body composition that I have right now, because of like the way your body fat changes, I wouldn't have that body composition if I never did bodybuilding. So, and a lot of people like Alberto Nunez, Jeff Alberts, a lot of these individuals that are really big and like they're pretty lean, like a lot of the time people would say that they're in pretty good shape, their body wouldn't look the way their bodies do without bodybuilding.
So without that extreme.
Exactly. Like they couldn't.
And that's the same for me. Like I wouldn't be as, I've never been this lean in my life. Like I've never been like this consistently lean. You know, since the bodybuilding show, I had a little ups and downs, but for the most part, I've been within about 10 pounds of the stage weight. and I know that I don't, look the same, lift the same. Like there's some things that are off. I just don't have quite as much muscle mass because there's not nearly the amount of concentration into it. And I'm not doing any cardio. I do some cardio type stuff in the workout itself, but I'm not spending hours on it every day. I work out for, I guess I would say there's an hour devoted to some form of exercise every day because I like walk and stuff like that too. But this is easy. All I'm doing is not eating and training about an hour. And then I have like an eating window that's like 4 to 6 hours. And this feels, and I think you feel the same way. This feels simple.
It does. It feels very, very easy. But, it seems that like with a lot of individuals who maybe they're doing something now for a long time, they have taken it to an extreme at some point. You've taken powerlifting to an extreme at some point, but right now you still do powerlifting and you love it, but it's now, it's now something you could do every day, and it doesn't necessarily matter what weight you move in the gym. It's still going to be an impressive weight, but you can do that. But there's a point where it's extreme. Like right now, to the point that I'm taking jujitsu, it's a bit of an extreme, but there's going to be a point where I'm not going to be like competing as much or going as hard in training, but I'm still going to be able to maintain it. So I feel like, maybe it's not the healthiest at that point in time, but there's a short burst of it where, it might be that way.
Why do you guys think we still hear people say, like, if you posted like a big old picture of steak and there's like no vegetables, or like I posted a while back, I think I posted a picture of like, my plate with like all vegetables and the meat was gone. Like it was, and basically, my plate is a place where vegetables go to die. I think I made a reference like that or something like that. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding around. Like I eat vegetables, but why do you think like a post with like some broccoli and kale, people are like pumped about, but sometimes the hamburger or bacon cheeseburger, people say, isn't that unhealthy? Why do you guys think people are stuck in that mode?
Because that's what's shared around. Like that's what you see on social media when you like, if you go on go into hashtags about health, that's the stuff you see. Like you see like, eat this, greens and all this, don't eat red meat. Like that's still a thing. This, like, we're a real niche in terms of the stuff we're talking about.
I think it goes much further than social media, because doctors are telling you can't have unsaturated fat, and it's like, oh, what's a ribeye have? Oh, tons. They say you can't have saturated fat.
Can't have saturated fat.
Unsaturated fat's okay, but ribeyes have so much saturated fat, like you're gonna clog your arteries, blah blah blah. So it's what we've been told. It's what a lot of the people on Instagram, what their parents have been told. So it's just kind of like still ingrained in our minds. So when we do see the kale salad, it's like, honestly, I think it's also because it's hard to eat that on a regular basis. So you see that as sort of like when somebody sees, Nsima pulling 700 pounds, like, oh man, that's crazy. Like I can't do that, but man, I can get behind that. When somebody posts that like they have another kale shake today, it's like, fuck dude, I can't do that, man. You're a stronger person than I am. Like, kudos to you.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of all that combined.
You're right. Actually, that's a really good point.
You think it's harder to eat the kale stuff and the veggies than it is the meat?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think you have a really good point. Like, if you post a picture of like a hamburger or In-N-Out, like people are gonna look at that and say, oh, that can't be healthy, because you're always told
that's
that
too good, because I can't have donuts. They taste amazing, but I know those aren't healthy, so they kind of lump in everything that tastes good.
Speaking of Dunkin' Donuts, I think, or speaking of donuts, Dunkin' Donuts, I believe, is just called Dunkin' nowadays because they have more things than just donuts.
Tim Duncan.
But Tim Duncan. They have Impossible. They got the Impossible sausage in there for their breakfast. I saw that the other day.
Oh, wow.
For their breakfast sandwich. So that kind of stuff is really interesting. I mean, I guess the thing has the same calories basically. So it's not really helping us with anything like that. From my understanding of the Impossible Burger, is it has less, just has less cholesterol. Is kind of the only thing that I'm seeing. Maybe it has a little bit less saturated fat too, or something like
probably
that.
less saturated fat.
Yeah. The whole thing is really wild. It's like what is this for? Like what is this for? But that's a multi-billion-dollar company already. Like the company's crushing.
Oh yeah.
It. Like they are kicking ass, and I wonder what thing are they fulfilling, and do they have, was this an intention of trying to make America healthier? Or what is the intent? I mean, they have all these food scientists and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I always kind of think that most things start out with a good intention and with a good heart. I think most supplement companies start out that way. I think a lot of businesses start out that way, and then people are like, oh, I can make money and I can save money and I can do this and I can do that. And then they start pixie dusting their supplements, mm-hmm. and there's less of the real product in there and so on. We know some of that information, but I really wonder, like, what's the mission of like an Impossible Burger? And I think sometimes they're thinking like, I heard this line of thinking of like, what happens if there's no more cows? Well, I would say that if we're in a place where there's no more cows, there's probably not machines to make a fucking Impossible Burger, because something really jacked up has probably happened to society.
Yeah.
And there's things other than cows too that we can, like, we have a lot of other types of meat, and I'm sure that there would be, and people are thinking about the damage to the planet that we're doing, which mm-hmm. a lot of that is being shown to be more hype than anything else.
If I can be the 12-year-old again, and is it really called the Impossible Sausage?
I don't know. Okay. I think so.
That's got to be someone's porn name, right?
Mm-hmm. It is now. Hashtag Impossible Sausage.
I couldn't help it. I think it's very much like when companies started making gluten-free stuff. It's like, this is gluten-free, this is healthier for you, or blah, 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 even though they just put more shit in it.
It's an interesting thing, because from a marketing standpoint, it doesn't really make any sense. Like, I'm going to target this subset of people that is probably really, really small, but hopefully America's scared enough to think that they fall into this subset of people, and hopefully they'll fall for it.
I think that's what's happening with the meat stuff too, mm-hmm. because a lot of people are still like even there's people in my life that are like, red meat's not good for you. You can't be eating that much red meat, right? So it's not. That's what most people believe.
And the mm-hmm. conversation at home from the old lady to the guy who's like mm-hmm. overworked, overstressed, doesn't sleep enough, got a pot belly, he's got a beer belly because he, plays pool with his buddies on the weekend and watches football or whatever. Mm-hmm. The conversation to him is like, honey, you need to eat healthier. And then that's when they say, hey, why don't you try this, like, vegetable thing that tastes like a burger.
Exactly.
Tastes like a hamburger. And I think, those and again, my understanding of some of this too is like, the vegan people are not the people that are their main customers. Their main customers are, people that are just trying this on a whim to kind of see if it would be something that would fit into their nutritional plan.
Is this better than In-N-Out? Is this better than McDonald's? Like, those are the people that go to those types of restaurants. Those are the people that they want to target with this stuff.
Yeah.
And if it tastes even a little bit better, that's healthier. So that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah. And some of the chains have picked it up, right? Like
Burger King,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some other chains too. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if McDonald's has picked it up, but is it any healthier? I mean, we're engineering a food. Is that healthier than just killing something and pulling it apart? I don't have answers on it, but it just sounds like, I mean, Impossible Burger probably has, over 10 ingredients, I'm guessing, mm-hmm. Whereas like a hamburger, like it might have, a couple things in it other than just beef, because it's ground up, could have like skin and some other gross shit in there, but it's pretty much like a one ingredient product. And then something like McDonald's, they might throw preservatives in there, salt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be like engineered in a lab necessarily. At least I don't think it is.
Exactly. No, I don't think it is either. I think, I think we're kind of grazing to the topic of Game Changers here. But if anyone has watched that, mm-hmm. Because I've been getting a lot of DMs about, have you watched Game Changers? Have you watched Game Changers? Have you watched Game Changers? Go watch Sean Baker's video on YouTube about Game Changers. Just go watch it, because he goes through pretty much everything in that documentary and tells you what's true, what's half true, and what's absolutely false. And there are a lot of like half truths in that documentary.
Vegetarians have stronger boners.
Oh, God.
That was the thing in the documentary.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That was
strange.
Second penis reference of this podcast today. Mm-hmm. Sorry. But yeah, I thought that was
that was an appeal to men. It was trying to get at men, like, hey,
you want to be a manly man? Drop the meat, eat the salad.
Why do you guys think that this happens too? So like, you know, I've been going to a yoga studio for a little while. Why do you think like yoga people adapt this kind of vegan? Like, what's the association there? Do you and maybe like more women are like, I think women just dig vegetables more, right? Like, but I don't know why. Like, is it because of society? Because we're taught that vegetables are healthy and women are trying to be healthy and skinny, or like, what do you guys think the deal is with that?
Just taking a shot here, because when I think of somebody who does yoga every day, they're real spiritual. They're more in tune with nature. They are basically hippies.
Earthing.
I love hippies. Okay. So I think, you know, with that mindset of like, you know, loving the earth, loving this, blah, blah, blah. And sorry if that's like painting a brush with all,
no, that makes sense.
They don't want to hurt animals. They don't want to hurt anybody. So I think that's probably why you'll find more people that do yoga probably follow a more plant-based diet, which I know you were talking about earlier. But that would be my assumption. And I don't think it's too far off.
It's not. It's not at all. Like when I look through the feed of like when I've seen women's Instagram feeds and like the feed of my girlfriend, and I see like when these weight loss posts pop up, it's always like, eat these vegetables for losing weight, or do this like vegan fast for weight loss, or do this juice fast for weight loss. It's literally always getting rid of meat and getting vegetables in. Like that's what you got to do to lose weight and be fit and be like, that is literally still that's the thing. That's the message that's not only being sent to women, but also being sent to girls. And then it goes from them to their husbands. And then
I think we could agree on some of this too. Like, I think that would be a decent practice for some people, especially somebody that we can't really get them to adhere to a tough nutritional plan. Say, look, man, when you go out to eat, get a salad, eat the shit out of that salad. Eat your bacon cheeseburger first. Okay, you don't want to ditch the bun, but I just fucking do it. You know, eat the burger first, and if you still got room for some French fries, like those are like little small changes. And if we can get you to have the salad without a ton of dressing on it, then we're probably going to eat less calories. Hopefully, by the time you got to the French fries, hopefully you don't clear them all out. And if you still clear them all out, then like what we're trying to do wasn't really that effective. But I think, you know, swapping out some calories for some vegetables isn't a bad idea, except for vegetables almost always are accompanied by a lot of calories. They always have junk on them. And so like one thing that I really wonder about vegetarians is, you know, what's their stance on like these vegetable oils? There's starting to be more and more information and evidence that these vegetable oils and seed oils are just horrific. Some people are saying they're as bad as sugar. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know how harmful they are, and I don't know like in what dosage. But if all you ever eat is veggies, and you eat a lot of veggies out, they're dumping all kinds of crap on your food. Restaurants that claim they use olive oil, a lot of times the olive oil is like 50-50. It's like 50% canola oil, 50% olive oil. So they're allowed to like do all kinds of crazy stuff that you're just unaware, like you just don't know, you know. And I don't know how big of a negative impact that would have, because like probably a vegan or somebody that's on a plan like that, someone that understands the diet probably isn't having a lot of vegan snacks, and they're probably not overeating. Yeah. So again, they're probably on a pretty decent path, but still, I kind of wonder if there's much negative impact of some of those oils and stuff.
Just real quick, because I don't know, is olive oil okay to use?
It's a fruit.
I don't
yeah, olive oil. So olive oil and coconut oil, they cook at pretty good temperatures. I think with olive oil, I think you need to be careful at how high a temperature you cook it. But like if you're just going to pour it on a salad, it's great. And avocado, all that stuff's good. Yeah, they're not. Those aren't vegetables. I don't know what the deal is with vegetable oil. I don't know why it's being like demonized, but my understanding is just like the process of it. They have to heat it up too much, and then it just has the PUFAs in it, the polyunsaturated fatty acids that they're like what's the word? They're like damaged. They're damaged because of the process they have to go through. They have to get heated up too much, and you're pulling a lot of oil and stuff out of stuff that just doesn't typically have a lot of oil in it. Yeah, like such as vegetables. These have a lot of oil in them.
What's the oil that most fast food chains use? Is it canola oil that they use, or is it something else?
Yeah, just like corn oil, right?
Corn oil?
So fast food places. So the only places where fast food places would really use oils is in frying.
Yeah.
Because they usually just cook their burgers, and my understanding is a lot of these places just cook their burgers on a grill.
Okay.
Especially like In-N-Out. But I could be wrong. They could be using something in their burgers.
Yeah.
But not that I've seen.
I know for sure In-N-Out uses sunflower seed oil for their fries. Okay. And I know that because at the bottom of the tray, it says cooked in sunflower seed oil, and I was like, "Hey, like, is this cool? Like, is this a good thing?" So, like,
it's a bad thing.
I took a picture.
Should be cooked in, and it should be cooked in like tallow or something like that.
Yeah,
that can withstand a higher temperature.
I took a picture of it and I put it on my Instagram, and right away Paul Saladino was like, "Dude, that's the worst thing you can be having right now." I'm like,
"Wait for me, Satan."
Like, but sunflower seeds are good. Oh wait, but that's right. You can't like make oil out of them naturally. Yeah.
Right.
Damn it.
Yeah, I think the verdict is still out on some of that kind of stuff. But anyway, we've been sitting here nitpicking for quite some time, about like, do we really believe that you can, live longer by eating better and exercising? And I think that, it's hard to know, is Joe Rogan going to live to 120 because he exercises and eats healthy and rubbed elbows with some of the best people in the world? Is Dave Asprey, who says he's going to live to 140, going to be able to accomplish that through many, many different means that he utilizes to try to stay healthy and to try to stay in shape? I don't know if we'll ever really have the answers to it. I guess, when I think about some of these annoying people that ask, isn't that unhealthy? They've been saying that about powerlifting, and they've been saying about that, like about the styles of diets I use. Some of that is warranted because many times my posts are inflammatory, kind of on purpose, just to get like some knee jerk things going on and get some movement and get some attention. But when people are asking, isn't that unhealthy? I just hope that they're really asking that and they're really looking for an answer. Because I think if we all keep digging, maybe we'll start to find answers. And I'm not really after like longevity. I don't fucking care how long I'm here for necessarily. I just want to kick ass while I'm here and feel really good.
You're right.
So I'm not like scared to die. I don't really think about like mortality, and I don't really think about like longevity. Like if you were to think about it and you live to be, let's say that you live to be 200 years old, it's like that would kind of suck. You would see all your friends, all your family. You'd see everybody die. You'd have to be married a couple times. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe that wouldn't bother you too much. Can I get a hey now?
Dude, me and my boy, it's so funny that we're
dating
talking
at 150 years old would be kind of rough,
Yo, okay.
I can't find anybody else my age.
Yeah.
Dude, you're with a 25-year-old. You're 120 years old.
She's into older guys.
You pervert.
All right, it's so funny that we're talking about this.
Grandma wasn't born when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, because like last night, me and my boy, we were talking about this subject, but in a weird kind of way. So
you guys were naked.
No, we were clothed. We were clothed.
That's hot.
But pretty much, I think it's like, we were talking about like the longevity aspect of things, and because he was like, I think we were talking about 2100. He's like, I want to be dead by the time 2100 comes around. I'm like, come on, dude, you don't want to be dead. Like, what if in the next 20 years, there's a pill that comes out that can literally stop your aging process right there?
Damn.
Like and I was like, would you take it? And he's like, nah, man, that's not natural. like he's like, no, that's like we were made to age.
I think Peter Itea is using something like that, right? Like rapamycin or something like that.
Yeah, they're getting there to where they can do what you just said. Like, it's very rudimentary, obviously, right now, but I mean, it's
Galpin wasn't a fan of it.
Far off.
Yeah, Galpin's like, that guy's an idiot.
I mean, when you're as smart as Galpin, right? Everyone's an idiot.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, but would you guys take that pill if you could stop your aging process? Let's say, Mark, you get to 50, comes out, you can stop at 50, you can stop aging. Would you take it?
Well, it's amazing because, like if you were here forever, Like, we don't really know what's going to happen, but we do know that your aging process is going to stop right now.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, man, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know if I would.
I'll take that shit.
I mean, you're just around forever.
So I would I'd be down if I could take it and the aging process stops, but I still eventually die like I normally would.
Yeah.
Like I just happen to have like this like testosterone level.
This
like
is a
I
movie.
you know, like I still like I look this way. I have the same like muscle development or the ability to develop muscle.
Yeah.
But I just happen to be like, shit, look at the time. Like, well, I'll see you guys on the next
Yeah, imagine
run.
if you outlived everything. You know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
if
see,
I outlived all this and I had to like figure out a way to like restart shit.
Yeah, it would just be you and a bunch of cockroaches everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't die.
But so he was like, well, I don't think I want to take it because, you know, like I have a love and, you know, if she dies and my children die. Well, yo, if you got the pill, well, your kids can get the pill. Your wife can get the pill. So let's say your wife takes the pill.
Though? What if there's only one capsule?
Let's just say that this is a mass-produced capsule. You need some money to buy it, but you have that money.
You're going to have kids.
You have those kids, but then they can also take the capsule when they're 30 to 35 years old.
Can they,
So
though?
now you're living through like 5 generations and you look 50 and all your kids look 50, but y'all are like all centurions.
What if somebody feeds it to their baby? They got a baby forever.
You got a permanent baby.
All right, I would probably do that.
But after 30 years, your baby's now speaking like a 30-year-old in a
Oh,
baby's
man.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I mean, would my daughter not grow up to be bigger and like? You know?
That's just evil.
You could,
There would
Like,
be
she doesn't-
laws.
you know, you could put her in a box and she won't get any bigger, right?
like a watermelon when they make them grow square.
Yeah.
Or like, back in like ancient China, they would bound
Yeah, bind
girls'
their feet.
feet.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah.
Oh, you could do that to her. Say you got to stay the same size forever.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd take the pill.
You would take the pill.
I'd take the pill.
I think if like I said,
Like that guy over there said he's 940 years old. I don't believe him. He looks great.
Yeah, man. Hey,
Black don't crack.
Nope.
It really won't at that point.
Yeah.
Shoot.
it's a good little
Before
question
we
there.
close out, congratulations to Bryce Lewis. Unbelievable performance.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, he always is kicking ass. Last time he was here, he couldn't even lift with us. His back was all jacked up. He was hurting.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, he was like, I was like, what's we for YouTube stuff, we did like some bodybuilding stuff because I was in bodybuilding mode at that time too, and so that was the content that we shared. But congratulations to him. That's awesome. He's somebody that has just a really deep understanding of the sport, and somebody that like if you get programming from him, it's not some copy and paste thing that's like from his notes on his iPhone with a bunch of misspelled words and stuff. It's something that's really methodical. It's really thought out. And from the stuff he showed me, it was pretty crazy. Like he even gives you information for your like warm-ups and everything. Like there's everything's in there. Like you're going to use 65 pounds and then you're going to use 95 pounds. And it's like, holy shit. Like he really took a lot of time and effort to, produce all that. Workouts are tough. He has some tough workouts on there. He's a high volume, high frequency kind of lifter. And so you're going to get your butt handed to you. But if you want to get strong, man, he's a good guy to look up. He's a good guy to check out. And then also, I've never had the honor of meeting him, but I don't understand what's going on. This is a legend of legends, one of the greatest powerlifters of all time. Doesn't get enough respect or props, but a guy's named David Ricks. He squatted 683. I think it was 683.
Is that the video you sent me?
He is 60 years old. 60. And this guy's been breaking IPF and USAPL records for decades. I mean, it's just to put it in perspective. My best raw squat in a meet is 644. So. And this guy is doing it, I think, in like the 240, well, whatever. They have different weight classes, but 240 pound weight class. This is a drug-tested federation that he's been lifting in for like 9 million years. Just unbelievable. Jeez.
Are my man's eyes closed?
I think they might have been.
Whew. That's experience right there, man. That was a beautiful squat.
Yeah, and that was, it looks like that's from the Arnold Classic, but yeah, I want to say that he hit a 683 squat. I don't remember some of the other numbers, but just again, it's just a guy that just doesn't get mentioned all that much. And when we talk about the GOAT, when we talk about the greatest of all time, it's like, maybe our definition sometimes should change, because it's like that guy's been lifting for decades on end. He keeps going. Like maybe there's something kind of cool about being able to lift like this for so long.
780. Oh my God.
So this is, so he also used to compete in some single ply gear back years ago, when that's kind of all they had. He would be amazing to get on the podcast. I'm pretty sure he's like one of those dudes that just lives out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, no. If you guys,
my God, his spotter's like 75 feet tall.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys are listening, we're watching him squat 780 with knee wraps.
And just a YouTube's video.
Pretty interesting looking, like squat setup right next to the lockers.
Yeah.
Just in the back of a locker room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even in the gym. It's in the locker room.
Yeah. Oof. Oh, man. But that'd be great to have him on, because like we're over here talking about longevity in sport, right? Well,
nice.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, and he's had it. And he's probably, if that guy gets his blood work done, I'm sure he's healthy as a horse.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. In the videos I've seen on his Instagram, he's not over like limping around. He's spry. Looks like a spry young buck.
Damn. All right, peeps. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later. Bye.